I believe the Q&A was very interesting. It was one question, what's next? So that's the long answer, right, to what's next. We released the Gerrit 3.8 in the spring, so I'm going to give you some highlights of what's coming in 3.8 and what is going to come also in the next release. It's going to be 3.9. So first of all, just a few words about GerritForge. Our headquarters are in Sunnyvale, but we have been in the field for a lot more than 4 years. So we started contributing to Gerrit. I believe my first commit was in 2011. But I was already working on Git, JGit, and the integration of Git in the enterprise since at least 2009. There were some ideas also before that. So we are, of course, active contributors of the Gerrit Code Review project, but not just that. So we started in the last 2-3 years to contribute a lot to JGit. Then, of course, historically, I've always been a great fan of Jenkins, and I'm going to be a super duper great fan of Zool as well. And recently, we started also extending Gatling and using Spark for doing crunching on code reviews, on data. And those are the numbers of Gerrit 3.8. So first of all, as you can see, we've got a significantly less number of commits in Gerrit Core. We got just 163 commits. And, but we have 32 people that contributed to Gerrit Core and 9 organizations. So you see a breakdown on the left side who are the 9 organizations. As you can see, Google is still over 50% of the contribution to Gerrit. In the second place, we got GerritForge with 20%. Then Wikimedia Foundation. When you see Linear, actually that's a code name for the open source division of Qualcomm. So Qualcomm, that's good news. So started contributing a lot more to what it was in the past. So a big clap for Qualcomm. And Axis is there, SAP is there, and so on. But the thing that is really not surprising but encouraging is that we see a massive increase in contributions on JGit and plugin sides. And this is mostly because of the green slides that you see there. So as GerritForge, we started to ramp up the effort a lot on JGit. So we got involved a lot more in JGit. And David Ostrowski that just left after the Q&A, he is now a JGit committer. And we are planning to spend a lot more effort into JGit because JGit definitely needs help from the point of view of more people contributing, more people reviewing, more people helping getting stuff merged. And as GerritForge, we are going to help JGit also hosting JGit itself. So JGit is going to be hosted on GitHub.io. The second place, we got SAP, of course, Google, and all the other contributors. When you see Gmail, it means that, generically speaking, people that have a Gmail account, they don't disclose for which company they're working for, but they nevertheless contribute a lot to Gerrit. As you can see, there are 53 different plugins that have been together released with Gerrit 3.8. So that's not a small list, and where they received a massive contribution. And overall 807 contributions. So one slide on Gerrit 3.5. Gerrit 3.5 is end of life. Why do I have a slide on Gerrit 3.5? Because I wanted to show you something interesting. So if you look at the previous slide and the next one, look at the number of contributions to Gerrit Core in 3.8 and look at the number of contributions to Gerrit 3.5 that is an end of life release. So the reason why there are so many contributions is due to the blue slides that you see on the left. So Qualcomm are ramping up their efforts in migrating out of their fork, and they are targeting Gerrit 3.5. That is an end-of-life version. But nevertheless, they spend a lot of effort, a lot of changes, and emerge a lot of stuff on Gerrit 3.5. But just one warning, Gerrit 3.5 is end-of-life. It means that we are not going to make any release of Gerrit 3.5. We are not going to have a CI on Gerrit 3.5. And we are not going to make any end-to-end testing on Gerrit 3.5. So I'm sure that there will be a lot of testing efforts made by Qualcomm. But just a word of caution, be cautious, because before using it out of the box, you need to test it yourself. We will not test it. So we will not build it. You need to build from code, test it yourself, and making sure that works for you. Qualcomm made a tremendous effort for changes in Gerrit 3.5, And actually, as GerritForge, we are making a huge effort in improving the plugins also on end-of-life releases. So for instance, all the things that I presented yesterday on multi-site, you can use them also with Gerrit 3.5. You can use them also with Gerrit 3.4, okay? So we use and leverage the ability to have plugins to also provide new features to end-of-life releases, because as long as the APIs are the same, the plugins, they are not linked to the same kind of lifecycle that we have on Gerrit. So we can have active development on plugins on Gerrit 3.5, absolutely, okay? So just one small slide about Qualcomm, because Qualcomm is not here in presenting, but they came, it was a couple of years ago, presenting what they are doing on Gerrit. At that time was on Gerrit 3.4 because they were targeting Gerrit 3.4. Now they're targeting Gerrit 3.5, but basically it's the same type of improvements. The talk is being recorded, so you can go and watch it again on YouTube, and they will show you all the things they've done until a couple of years ago. Recently, they've done many more changes, right, for improvements. So whenever you see linaro.org is Qualcomm, just as the open source division. Okay, so there was someone yesterday asking me if Gerrit has any way to give credits to people that contribute to the code, their reviews, and so on. And actually, we do on the Gerrit project, because typically every year I go and do the top 10 contributors to the Gerrit project. And I'm really glad to see that in the top 10 we got Jacek. So round of applause for Jacek. He's ramping up the contribution efforts, and now he's in the top 10. And of course, let's say Google is always dominating. Google is not, let's say, scaling down their efforts. So we still have Ben, Edwin. They are the top 2. They've got Matthias with JGit, then there is me, Thomas, and many others, okay? So all this data you see here is coming from a site. It's called analytics.gerrithub.io. So that site is actually powered by one open source plugin that is called the Analytics plugin. So if you install the Analytics plugin into Gerrit, you will have Gerrit producing all the data that you need to build richer analytics around your code, around your reviews, and so on. And we are going to invest a lot more effort into the analytics, because if you want to build an intelligent system, you need to gather more data out of your code, out of your reviews, out of your comments, right? And the way they are out of the box in the repository, they are not usable by big data engines. But so we implemented this plugin in a way that can extract the data in a way that can be put into maybe big data storage, for instance, the one that you can use on G-Cloud as well, I don't know, Bigtable, or let's say some GCS buckets and so on, and then you can do some more intelligent crunching there. Let's go by organization. Again, Google is confirmed to be the leader in terms of Gerrit contributions, so over 50% in the past 12 months. The second place is still GerritForge, then we've got SAP and all the others. Qualcomm Inc. and Linaro, they are split in 2 different slices, but I believe together will be definitely the 4th place, because before they were QualcommInc.com, and then they changed to linaro.org. So in terms of the analytics, you see as 2 different slices, but they are the same contributors. So they're definitely after SAP in terms of contributions. That one includes not just Gerrit, but also JGit. Okay, so if we compare 3.8 to 3.6 and 3.7, you see these swap that I was mentioning before. So before, a lot of features that were coming from core, but now that the core is very much stable, we are trying to introduce more features through plugins. So you see the core contributions went down 90%, but the plugin contribution are not going down, actually they're going up in 3.8. You will see that trend continuing also in 3.9. So we will not see massive differences in 3.9, but you will see a lot of improvements in terms of plugins as well. Okay, so how do you upgrade to Gerrit 3.8? So I've got 2 options always. One is with 0 downtime, so it means that you don't have to tell your people, guys, there is going to be a 16 hours outage because of a Gerrit upgrade. No, you can just upgrade, and the people won't see any interruptions. I'm going to show you live now with the demo. Or then you declare a downtime, you shut down Gerrit, you upgrade, and then you start up again. Either way will work. So if you want to do a big jump, you can do upgrade from Gerrit 3.2 to any Gerrit 3.8, so to 3.5, 3.6, 3.7 or 3.8 in one go, but you have to go offline. You will need to do a small stop and go on Gerrit 3.5, remember, because we have a utility that you need to run that is called the copy approvals. So if you want to upgrade from 3.2 to 3.5, run the copy approvals 3.5, 3.8. You cannot do 3.2, 3.8 all in one go. You have to stop to 3.5. The question is, if you want to upgrade, there are sometimes in the mailing list, can I upgrade from Gerrit 2.10 to 3.8? No, you can't do that, right? You have to go through some steps, right? Because from Gerrit 2x to latest version of Gerrit is not an easy upgrade. Okay, so if you want to downgrade, it's possible. You can do it, but you have to call a downtime for downgrading. Okay, upgrading, zero downtime, downgrading, unless you're in the middle of the upgrade. If you're in the middle of the upgrade in zero downtime, you can still stay on 3.7. Because when you go in upgrade, we'll see now, basically you go to two different legs of Gerrit. One will go to 3.8, the other will stay on 3.7, right? If you realize that something isn't working, you can just kill the 3.8, you keep the 3.7. That is zero downtime. But if you upgraded everything to 3.8 and after a week you realize that, oh my gosh, I want to go back to 3.7, then you have to call a downtime. And that's because you need to do an offline reindex of changes. Goes here, two different Gerrit servers running. So we got a Gerrit 1 that is 3.7, and we got a Gerrit, and this is a second leg that is running still on Gerrit 3.7. And on the GUI, that's my GUI. As you can see, I'm running on 3.7.5, right? And I run some Gatling tests that are, let's say, just pushing stuff here, right? Then I will upgrade it to Gerrit 3.8. There we go. And as you should do as well, never upgrade manually. Always based all the different upgrades efforts with scripting. So script your upgrade, try many times to get ready with that, and measure every time how long does it take. I did it for my demo as well. Hopefully it will work. So I've got here a nice script that is called upgrade to 3.8. I'm going to show you what the script is doing. I'm just basically building my 3.8 image. Here I'm using the Dockerized setup of Gerrit, just because it makes things so much easier, right? You don't want your installation to be mutable. You want your setup to be immutable. Because whatever happens, if anyone is touching the upgrade, whatever, you want to know what was the state. You tested and you certified. So I'm using Docker for that. So I'm rebuilding my images. Then I'm removing the health check plugin from the first instance. And this will make the first instance unhealthy. So in a way that the load balance will not give traffic to the first instance anymore. Then I'm sleeping 20 seconds. I'm a bad guy. I should actually do something more sophisticated here. I should wait for the incoming connections to drain. But this is just a demo, so I just did sleep 20. Then I'm just killing Gerrit 1. Again, I'm a naughty person because I should do a regular shutdown, but this is just a demo. Then I'm starting again the Gerrit 1 with the new version. As you can see, I don't do any init because the migration from 3.7 to 3.8 doesn't have any schema changes, so I don't need to run init. I just refresh the binaries, that's it. And then I'm waiting for the first instance to become healthy again, okay? Because if you do zero downtime upgrade, you kill one, you restart, and you kill the second. Maybe the first one restarted but wasn't healthy yet. And then the people will see a nice 502, server is not responding, whatever. So you need to be a little bit gentle before restarting the second instance. Then you restart the second instance, you wait for the same, and then you're ready to go. Okay, so let me execute, guys, fingers crossed. There we go. I'm rebuilding, so in the meantime, I keep on using my instance, right? This is here. So I can go to the first item, I can go to this one, I can do some +2. I keep on doing my work whilst the build is doing? Oh, this is still building. Let's wait for this one to start shutting down the first instance. So now if you look at the logs, the first is an LT. Now the health check is returning 404. So now if I go to the GUI, I should go to the second instance. So if I go here, still there, it's still working, but my traffic goes here now on the right side, on the second instance, because the first one is down, okay? Now the Gerrit UI is getting upgraded. I keep on looking here. I see stuff, nothing has been abandoned. Maybe let's abandon something. Go to this one and abandon this change. Abandoned, right? Done. And the Gerrit UI now is healthy again. So when Gerrit UI is healthy again, the system is in the status that I mentioned before. So we got one leg that is 3.8, the second it is 3.7. So now I put here and pause a step, because when you get to this point, you should typically not serve traffic yet to the upgraded instance, but should have a kind of pilot team that makes sure that the upgrade was successful. You should have a set of validation tests. We suggest using Gatling for those validation tests. You run your Gatling test, see the results. Did it work exactly as we tested in staging? Yes. Okay, then when you're ready to go, you say, go and continue. Now let's do again the logs here. There we go. It's going there, and the upgrade will continue on Gerrit UI. If I keep on using the GUI, I still see that things are working. And I have a question for you guys. So now I'm using the Gerrit UI, that is the upgraded instance. However, what do you see on the bottom of the screen? Which version of Gerrit I am? 3.7.5. So why the GUI still shows 3.7.5, even if absolutely I'm in 3.8?
A page template is cached on the browser, so you need
exactly.
to refresh.
Exactly. So the way that Polymer works is that all the components that you see are web components. They are stored into the browser. It means that even if you change the page, the browser will hold the components that have been loaded when the people start at 3.7. So how is it possible that Gerrit still works? You've got a 3.7 UI in a 3.8 backend. And the answer is very simple, because this is possible because us, they are the Gerrit developers, we make sure that the next version of the REST APIs are backward compatible with the old use. So in that way, even if the people, you are in the middle of the upgrade, the people won't realize you're upgrading Gerrit until the next day, even if you're upgrading that day, because the REST API, the 3.8, will serve the 3.7 UI. So the people will have zero disruption. When I mean zero downtime, it's really zero downtime. It's not that you will see a 500 and you refresh, it's working again. That is not zero downtime. Zero is zero, absolutely zero. So if I really want to see then the experience of a 3.8, I just need to do a full refresh of the page, and I'm on 3.8. Okay, if you're curious about this script, they are just a demo, but if you want to have a look, they are published on GitHub. I'm more than happy to share the links as well, okay? So let's go here. As you can see, the second instance was upgraded again, and if I do DC log, now we are healthy again on the second. First of all, the setup that you have seen in my zero downtime upgrade was this one. So I used localhost 80 and localhost 294.1.8, and I was talking to HA proxy, and then there was Gerrit UI and Gerrit UI, and they were pointed to two different ports. And in this case, was sharing the repository with I was sharing the file system for the repositories, but was not sharing the indexes. So the indexes were completely different between the two instances. Let's go and have a look on Gerrit 3.8, on closer look. So first, Gerrit 3.8 is the last version of Gerrit where we officially support and distribute Gerrit on Java 11. We also compatible with Java 17, but Java 17 is not a long-term release, so if you want to use on Java 17, feel free to do so, but it's not a long-term support release. And this is the last version of Gerrit on Java 11. From the next version of Gerrit, you will have to migrate to Java 21. So the native packages, they've been slightly upgraded. There was a minor upgrade on Alma Linux and on Ubuntu, okay, but nothing major. So if you have an existing setups of additional components, so if you had a derived image from the Docker container, which should still work, but be aware of some minor upgrades. This is mainly for security fixes. But there are some major improvements on the UI. The browser notifications. I wanted to show this one because that's really cool. So whenever someone will put yourself into the attention set, then the browser will be able to notify on the GUI directly. And that could be really useful if you don't want to get a bunch of notifications by emails, and you can switch off the emails if you want to, and enable notifications in the browser. Before 3.8, you either needed to put some super duper clever on the filters in your inbox to really gather the things that you care about, or you needed to shut down everything and just watch your dashboard all the time. In this case, you can get notified whenever someone say, I need attention from you on Gerrit. Another interesting feature on the UI that's really something that was missing is the ability to cherry pick changes across different projects. So before, you could have cherry-picked changes, but only between different branches of the same project, right? But with this feature, what you can do, you can get one project, download the patch set as a div, and then get the div, and from the div straight away, create another change on another project. So you can do that now. There is a just REST API for 3.8. I'm hoping that in 3.9 we will complete this feature, yeah, with more UI part. Then we have very nice improvements on the div view. So this was already anticipated last year, but now has been officially released. So this is really useful because many times there are changes, they are not visible because it's just the file mode of the file. So files was not executable and now is executable. That's very important from a build perspective, right? Imagine you're fixing a build issue that a shell file was not executable. They will then not be visible without this change. Now you see, okay, someone has added the X flag to this file. And we have been waiting for this feature for years, right? This feature has been there for a very long time, but didn't have any UI, right? And now finally has a UI. So the ability for people to suggest fixes and apply with one click, we have been missing on Gerrit for a long time. So now finally it's there. That's really, really useful, especially for very, very small changes. Someone adjusts a typo, right, on one file. It's really tedious just to say, oh, please apply this typo on this file and fix it in this way. Also, this opened the doors for automatic checks on this because you could run, let's say, automatic spec checker and just suggest and allow the people to fix it straight away with just one click. So it's not just for humans, it's for robots as well. Then you got more features on the prefix and subjects prefix, which is really useful, especially not just for searching for changes, but also for submit requirements. Because whatever you can search in Gerrit, you can use it as an expression in submit requirements. So in this case, you can really go and search for substring, but also regex on subject or prefix of the subject. And this is really, really cool. So Gerrit has this fantastic feature of being able to rebase from the GUI. But how many times you had a series of changes? You need to do rebase, 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 rebase. Then someone is uploading a new base patch set and you rebase, 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 rebase. It was really tedious, right? Gerrit puts to another level by saying, first, I want to rebase on behalf of the author if the rebase is trivial. And that's really cool because before, by rebasing, you are becoming the committer of the change. And then if you put some rules that the author and committed cannot merge, you can't merge the change anymore. That was really, really embarrassing, right? So this has been, let's say, improved. So you can rebase on behalf of the author if you want to. And you can also rebase a series of changes with one click. So a very small modification and improvement, but a very, very big advantage for the developer in terms of saving time. We got the secondary emails. This is more for confidentiality. So some of the people may want to add secondary emails, but that could be private emails. So that could be an issue in corporate environments where maybe you're not authorized to disclose the private emails of people. So we have a specific ACS now for that. So all the European people will be really happy about this one. And also we started improving the ease of migration from LDAP to something else. Okay, when you migrate, Are you still on LDAP? First of all, raise your hands. You're still using LDAP. You're still using LDAP, right? And many companies are moving away from LDAP and they're going into other single sign-on systems because LDAP does not include two-factor authentication, is not safe to be used maybe over the internet. Lots of people now, they have a mixed working environment, home plus work. So they are moving typically to auth or SAML. Those are the two things, the two technologies that people are using. But migrating them could be tedious sometimes because the people, they end up with two accounts. One, the old account in LDAP, the new account in SAML, they end up to have the same mail, and what you get when you register? Conflict. Gerrit says, oh, there is already an account with this name, you cannot log in anymore. Okay, so we started introducing some fixes there. So specifically now the first one is if you migrate explicitly from LDAP to Google or auth, basically Gerrit will understand that you are the same person, it will impersonate the existing identity, but more needs to be done. It's not implemented yet for any other auth provider or for SAML, not yet. So it means that if you need to do that migration in-house, you need to make sure to add the external IDs in accounts in all users repo, otherwise you will end up with the same problem. But we are getting there. So thanks to Alvaro, we finally fixed the login URL. This has been broken for a very long time. So you were configuring a different login URL or a different login link, and Gerrit was just didn't care about that, ignore it, and that was broken for a very long time. Just be careful, because if it was running unnoticed, and maybe you had an invalid URL now, then what may happen? You upgrade to 3.8 and say, login is not working anymore. No, actually, your configuration was there. Just log in. Gerrit didn't care about it until 3.8, while now cares about it again. We started, and this is actually specifically SAP, because SAP started investing a lot in installing Gerrit in Kubernetes. And there is going to be actually a talk this afternoon on Gerrit on Kubernetes, a real life setup, multi-site and highly available. And they allowed to override certain properties that are really important when you set up multi-site, such as the instance ID or the canonical web URL and so on. And also for us, for Gerrit Hub, so we are now getting ready to host all the projects from the Eclipse Foundation, and we are multi-site. And we also use a plugin that is called Virtual Host. It means allows Gerrit to have different views depending on the host name that you give to Gerrit. Similar to virtual host that you've got in Apache HTTPD, right? So it may, in a way that when you come to Gerrit Hub from Eclipse or GerritHub.io, you don't see anything else other than the Eclipse Foundation projects. And when you go to GerritHub.io with another URL, you see something different. We needed some magic to happen in Gerrit, and thanks to Darek, it fixed it and introducing Gerrit the ability to override that with the canonical web URL provider. Then we got some other improvements. There are the ability to define some relevant external groups. This is something that people thought it was a broken thing in Gerrit, but actually that's the way it was working. When you have external groups, and I mean also LDAP groups, Gerrit don't see them unless the projects they belong to, so they are referenced to in ACLs, are loaded in cache, right? That was causing some very, let's say, inconvenient situations where people are calling you guys by saying, why Gerrit doesn't allow me to do this and that? Why Gerrit doesn't see that I'm a member of this LDAP group? Just because the project wasn't loaded in the cache. Now Gerrit has the ability to tell the system that some of the groups are more important, and even if they are not loaded in some cache projects, they need to be considered, absolutely, regardless. Then we got the ability to skip the automatic addition of author and committer as a reviewer when you do cherry picks. So when you do cherry pick, basically the author and committer that becomes automatically reviewers. That could be an issue in some organizations. When you cherry pick a change for someone that left the organization, then the change is stuck because you're waiting for someone to review that will never show up, right? At least in this case, you force the people to assign reviewers. And then we've got also the ability to improve the CB requirements with committer and uploader and some other predicates, such as if it changes some module updates. More improvements on CB requirements. The fact to define condition if the user is a non-contributor, and you can define some specific rules. One thing, as you may notice, so we put a lot of efforts in making submitting requirements as powerful as possible in a way that you can get rid of prologue. Are you guys still using prologue in your projects? Raise your hand. Just one, which is a good thing, a good thing. So look at all these improvements in submitting requirements because we may need them, right? Okay, another one, this is more if you're a plugin developer. So many times when any task Gerrit was doing, you needed maybe to be advised for doing any activity, any cleanup, any tracing, and so on. Now you can have plugins that can be called whenever a new task gets created or gets dismissed and destroyed, right? And then you can do whatever you want. You can log, you can audit, you can do actions, you can track. Last but not least, that's very important, is if you were doing any customization of a Gerrit look and feel. So look at this slide very carefully, because that could be the first thing that is breaking when you migrate from 3.7 to 3.8. So if you were customizing anything, the color of Gerrit, on GerritHub.io, we change it to a different tone of blue because we like that blue we have on the t-shirts as well, and we like to keep that one as a kind of a brand identity, let's put it this way. But Gerrit has a different tone of blue. Also, we like putting, let's say, the Gerrit Hub logo there and get the Gerrit Hub title there. You may have something similar in your company. So be careful, because you need to change the way that you define that CSS in Gerrit when you go to 3.8. This is a breaking change. I believe that Jacek mentioned already, there are some massive performance improvement on caching. And this has been actually a port of some improvements that Qualcomm did on 3.5 that have been merged up to 3.8. So one thing, when I was mentioning 3.5, it means that we didn't test those changes in 3.5. But when they get merged to a non-end-of-life version, we test them. And we found issues, and we fixed them from non-end-of-life version. And that improvement was really key, because improving a lot the performance over NFS. There were people coming to me yesterday by saying, we like HA, but we tested on NFS, the performance is awful, and we had corruption, whatever. So there are a lot of improvements coming in 3.8 if you're using NFS. So now, warning of all the things that may break. So if you were still using Gerrit without attention set, you were disabling on UI, the switch is gone. So you upgrade the 3.8 attention set there, and you cannot disable attention set. And on the other side, the assignment, the assignee feature is gone. It's not there anymore. We removed completely from the documentation, from the code. So people may complain that that information, even if it's still in NodeDB, is not displayed anymore because it's not used anymore. Okay, so be careful. If you were relying on the assignee and you didn't want to use attention set, that could be a showstopper for you. Then we start phasing out robot comments. And that's very important. So I know for sure some of the customers we got, they use robot comments. Robot comments, they were stored into NodeDB. But they were never meant to be stored there. They are not even stored into the meta. There is a specific ref that is called robot comments. And because robots are robots, they produce an insane number of comments. I've seen changes, trust me, with 1 million comments. So no UI and no human is ever supposed to go and answer those comments. 1 million, really? Someone is supposed to click 1 million comments and just read them? No, they're just done for robots, right? They are produced by robots and consumed by robots. The NodeDB was not the right place, so we start phasing them out. They're going to be a different way of rendering robot comments on UI. But here you can start disabling robot comments on 3.8. They're still supported but disabled. In 3.9, definitely we will get rid of it. Okay, so be ready to say goodbye to robot comments and just expose them in a different way. Another thing, this is more a security thing. So before, Gerrit was very generous in rendering stuff on the GUI. Now it's not anymore. So things that were rendered as a hyperlink on the GUI, they're not rendered anymore. And also, if you wanted to create some command link that was rendered into HTML, that's not a possibility anymore. You can still render links if they're pointing to things that Gerrit knows about, but allowing to render any generic HTML has been considered a security problem, so has been completely disabled. And if you had some of those comments, you upgrade to 3.8, they are getting ignored. That's why it's very important that before upgrading to 3.8, even if there are no schema changes, do your testing, upgrading staging, involve the business and see if that works for them and so on. Prolog rules, they are officially deprecated. It means that if you try to add prolog rules to a project, you will get a message that says, you shouldn't do that. You should look at some requirements because we still support prolog rules, but we will get rid of them. So please act and don't introduce new prolog rules, okay? But it's still supported, but the system will start telling you that you need to get out of prolog rules. In the end-of-life plans, so Gerrit 3.6 is going to be end-of-life in November. So it means we will not do more releases after the end-of-life. I typically do a very last release before declaring end-of-life. So there will be definitely a new release of 3.6 in November, then not anymore. And also Java 11 is end-of-life. So from the next version of Gerrit, we will start distributing on Java 21. The source code, as usual, will still be Java 11 compatible. So if you want to install Gerrit 3.9 in Java 11, you need to build it yourself, right? But 3.8 is still Java 11. But 3.9, please get ready to Java 21. So preview, this is the planned feature. Nothing is confirmed, right? Things may change. Changes may be reverted, or features may be included. But we are going to release on Java 21. The plan is to release by the end of November of this year. Then we have the new batch ref updated event. And that's really important because we definitely need to make sure that the Jenkins trigger plugin is not going to blow up with these ones. What is this batch ref updates? You know that Gerrit has the concept of a batch ref update locally. So you can create a ref update with 10 ref updates in a batch. But then when they're getting notified to Jenkins, those are individual 10 ref updates, even if it was a batch for Gerrit. The problem is that the CI/CD will trigger 10 different jobs. And they will say that one is failing, the other is not failing, but for Gerrit it was a unit of work. Yeah? There are other implications as well. They mentioned, for instance, the problems with replication, right? If you replicate every single ref update, if you don't replicate in a batch, you may replicate an inconsistent set of refs and so on. So there will still be a feature flag for allowing you to do a smooth migration, because of course, otherwise you migrate to 3.8, you all of a sudden generate new events that Gerrit trigger plugin does not expect, and it will blow up. So you can migrate to 3.8, leave the feature disabled, then upgrade the Gerrit trigger plugin, and slowly start using the new feature. Draft comments, we just forgot to generate the ref update whenever someone was producing draft comments. That was a big problem if you were running multi-site. That is not very usual, but may have happened that someone is starting a draft in, I don't know, London. I say, I don't want to publish my draft. Then I go to the US. Then I go back to Gerrit. Then I'm using the site in the US. Say, oh, my drafts are gone. Where are my drafts? The drafts are back. They're still, let's say, in London. They're not in the US. This is because we forgot to implement the ref updated event for the draft comments. This has been fixed in 3.9. There are still some work to do, but I'm sure that 3.9 will see this work finalized. We got some introduction on new limits for topics and for other stuff like the maximum size of people or the file can download. And that's very important because people, they got so addicted to use Gerrit and REST API, they were using it even instead of doing a clone. So what happened if you go to Gerrit and you request a download of a file of 10 gigabytes? What do you think Gerrit will do? Well, not crash, but there will be all the time that it's taking for this guy to download this 10 gigabytes. Maybe he's working from home and will take 6 hours. You still have these 10 gigabytes in memory. And if you've got 10 people doing it, 10 gigabytes, that's 100 gigabytes. Maybe your server is not so happy, right? So you will introduce some limits, because if they really want to do this, use the Git protocol. I know the REST API are nice, but Git is there. Use Git, right? And Git can do a lot more than that. The same thing for diffs. Someone allow big files and is diffing big files. Doing the diff between two files of 10 gigabytes may take a while. So at least you disable that. And also, this is really cool. So in 3.9, there will be a lot of improvement on the diff view when there are conflicts. So it will be the diff 3. So we'll really see clearly more the conflicts when there is a review that contains conflict. At the moment, we're just showing basically the conflict markers, but that's it. But this is a lot more. Whenever someone is in the attention set, right, they can be reassigned or removed from the assignment after a certain period of time because someone is the attention set and is on holiday. It doesn't answer. So maybe it's better to remove that assignment, right, and let the reviewer to assign to someone else because it's clearly not going to answer. There is also one interesting improvement that I like that is called index changing and async. Have you ever noticed that on the GUI, whenever you do some changes, sometimes there is a little bit of lag from when you click, from when you see the feedback on the GUI. And many times it's related to the time to do the reindexing of the change. Now there is the ability also to enable the asynchronous indexing specifically for the GUI in a way that whenever you do a change, the reindexing will happen in background on the back end and the GUI is released a lot quicker. So you will see a lot of improved user experience in terms of being fluid, right? As you can see, a lot of small changes, but very, very effective for the functionality and the user experience. Accounts can be deleted via REST API. Yes, I wrote a plugin for doing this many years ago. You couldn't remove accounts. They were just disabled, but if they're disabled, you do a migration, they're still there. And then you ended up with a situation like the Eclipse Foundation that had something like 200,000-300,000 accounts, but actually they are just 5,000. And the others, they are just accounts that you can't get rid of it. Now you can remove accounts, okay? Which is good because also from GDPR perspective, there is the right to be forgotten, and at least Gerrit can do as much as he can. I'm going to remove the accounts. So I believe after this one is going to be officially released, I'm just going to declare my plugin deprecated. I'm going to be a happy man, right? I don't need a plugin anymore. And then this is really interesting. From 3.9 onwards, your plugins can add key values to NodeDB. So it means that if your plugin needs to say something more about this change, and that is business logic of your application, you can store that information in NodeDB. Please do not abuse. It's not designed to store a database, right? I'm sure people will do, but it's not designed to do that. But that will allow to store small information there that otherwise would have needed a different storage. Plugin. You won't believe it, it's still supported from version 2.16. I developed that plugin so long ago. But the latest fix on the canonical web URL is available only from version 3.9. But it still works. There are some gotchas on old versions, but yeah, the virtual host plugin was a development that I did many years ago. And Sean was still with us. When I showcased in a hackathon to Sean, he was impressed and said, why did I spend writing so much code for doing the same for Google? It was possible with just these few lines of code. If you look at the plugin, it's so small. It's incredibly small. And I basically hijacked a feature that Sean introduced that was the permission backend. And what basically Virtual Host plugin does is looking at your host and is creating a host-sensitive permission backend. So if it sees that you're coming from, for instance, Eclipse or GerritHub.io, in addition to your ACLs, we'll add an additional predicate, and you can configure that predicate. And we say, okay, if you're coming from Eclipse or GerritHub.io, then in addition to the ACLs, you cannot see anything that is not the Eclipse Foundation. Done. So easy. It's very easy, and it's very simple.
We can delete accounts now. So are there any plans for a feature to delete groups as well?
Delete groups, that's an interesting question, and actually there is an open change. So there was already a proposal years ago for a delete group plugin, okay? I believe maybe CollabNet proposed it, right? And there was a design document that was approved to do delete group through a plugin. But then at the end of the day, something that Gerrit needs anyway. It's a bit tricky because you need to be sure that the groups are not referenced in any ACLs. So the change is still open. I'm hoping that is done properly with all the checks. But maybe we'll make it in 3.9. We don't know yet. If the changes get merged by 3.9, 3.9 will see the delete group functionality as well.
That will be nice.
Yeah. See you later.